I should have spotlighted us, myself and yourself, Nigel. So
Okay.
welcome everyone to Your Game Your Way. This month we will be talking about refugee and asylum seekers in football. Is a very topical subject at the moment, but there's actually the reason why we're going through this subject today is actually Nigel's here to tell us a little bit about a project that he's been working on as a community of practice ambassador for the FA. So Nigel, why don't you just give us a bit of a overlook on what this project is?
Yeah, so the project that I'm working on is basically the FA's Refugee Football Network, and it's a project that came about partly because of my involvement with Hilltop United FC, who we're going to hear from shortly.
Yes, please.
And I got involved with them very early on in the project, and realised that actually there were a few equivalents of Hilltop across the country, different teams all playing sort of in isolation from each other. So when I actually joined the FA's Community of Practice Ambassadors group, I started thinking about what project that I was going to do. And this is what I decided I was going to do. That's how it was really born. And so the FA's Refugee Football Network, it's basically designed to be an information sharing and the support group with some support from the FA Community of Practice and the county FAs. It's designed to give a bit of a blueprint for how to set up a team and to organise and support tournaments in addition to those that are already happening. And I also want to explore a little bit around player coaching and refereeing pathways in terms of training and qualifications for those people. But it's also about hearing the views from people such as yourselves and whoever joins the group, just to sort of shape what that group might look like in the future, what it could become, what it's all about. We're also looking to arrange the first proper meeting of the group shortly after this call. And again, we had a chance there to define what it might look like in the future. We'll do a one-pager that basically describes exactly what the refugee network's about, and I'll send that out to anyone else, and I'll put my contact details in the chat in this call, and obviously I can send them to anyone else that asks for them. So that's pretty much the overview, Alan.
Yeah, no, brilliant work there, Nigel. And I feel it's something that's really important. And I see a lot of similar, well, working with refugees and asylum seekers across the FA in different counties. So it's really good that we could have a centralized place where we could all talk about it and work together on this. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our first panelist, Youcef El Barhdadi. Have I said that right, please?
Yeah, not far off. Yeah, Youcef El Barhdadi.
Okay, thank you. Why don't you just tell us a little about yourself and your role and how you got here?
So my name's Youcef El Barhdadi. I've been involved in football since since I was probably about 4 years old. So played for a local side. I've always played for local sides on Saturdays and Sundays. Previously worked at the Oxfordshire FA last year, and helped work with Refugee Resource and Asylum Welcome in Oxford, to help set up what later became known as Oxford Phoenix Football Club. We are now going into our first season in the Oxfordshire Senior League. We've had 4 games so far, 2 wins, 2 losses, very narrow losses as well. But very, very proud of kind of where we started and where we've come from. The team is made up entirely of refugees and asylum seekers, with myself sometimes playing as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. Actually, you mentioned there refugees and asylum seekers, and I think this is good point for people in here, because I personally, can you explain to me what's the difference between a refugee and an asylum seeker?
So quite simply, an asylum seeker would be somebody who's currently staying in a hotel who's waiting for their refugee status, whilst the refugee has been given indefinite leave to remain, or 5 years to remain in the country. Asylum seekers can't work. They are on, I believe, £8.86 a week in terms of government funding, which is minimal for them to be able to live off. So obviously that becomes very prohibitive for them to play football, with the costs involved with that. Once asylum seekers get their refugee status, if they are granted their refugee status, they are then kind of put into the world of, right, you need to go get a place to stay and you need to get work. So it's not as simple as, right, you're a refugee, suddenly now you can do everything. It's a bit of a challenge as well. So yeah, that's the main difference basically.
Thank you for that. Yes, Youcef.
Yeah, so I think our next guest, Alan, is still trying to get onto the call. So
Okay.
we're going to struggle to get him in. I think I don't know what's happening with the technology, unfortunately. I think I've asked him to come out and come back in again because he was saying he was in the lobby but unable to get in.
Sure. Should we just move on to Laura instead?
Yeah.
Then?
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura, if you could give us a brief introduction, tell us who you are and where you fit in all this.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Laura.
There we go. Asylum seeker and refugee coordinator. So I work with all of the asylum seekers that we have in the city. Our asylum seekers are no longer in hotels. They're in what's called dispersal accommodation. So they're in houses spread across the city and they get a whopping £47 a week. I support them with all of the aspects of being an asylum seeker and the issues that they face. What we found, what the guys need most is a sense of belonging and being a part of something. And that's what we've seen with the Hilltop United. I'm not directly involved with Hilltop, but I do support them quite closely. Given the waiting times for asylum and not knowing what's going to happen or where they're going to be, there is a huge issue of depression and isolation, which is where something like Hilltop United has been a huge success because it gives the boys a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose.
That's really important too, I feel. And I guess that's what the power of football is, really, isn't it? That sense of purpose for everyone. So I want to ask you, Youcef, actually, you mentioned earlier about and Laura, you sort of touched on this too, the sort of how much resources asylum seeker or a refugee has, and how is that how's that challenge? How have you overcome that challenge at your club? With if they don't have the money to play or have the money to buy equipment, what have you done to help this?
I think obviously it's incredibly difficult when you're working on a shoestring. I mean, the huge challenge, and Laura will back me up on this, is travel is always very, very difficult. And then of course the financial side of it. So what we did with Oxford Phoenix before we actually became a league club is we would try and get the players to play locally in other clubs and then try and find sponsorship for them locally. But that was so expensive in the end. Clubs were expecting about £250 per season. I mean, football isn't that cheap, unfortunately, despite it being a universal game. So what we decided to do was just to take it in-house, quite simply, and yeah, find sponsorship, find funding from other sources so that we could, give 16 players every week, football. But yeah, that's always a challenge, is the financial side of it. That also obviously goes into kind of health and nutrition. I mean, some of the food that we've seen the boys eating in the hotel is not great, and is definitely not conducive to kind of sporting accomplishment, as many of them do want to continue their path onto semi-professional, professional footballers. So yeah, it's a big challenge, and I know Laura will back me up on this. But we try and create that sense of community to give them the best opportunity for them to then take the next steps.
No, that sounds amazing. I think I think it's always a challenge financially to get a club running, but then I guess with the extra layers of complexity for asylum seekers and refugees, it's even a bigger thing for you to cross that line. I mean, how has the sort of feedback been from people when you approach them for sponsorship and and resources?
It can be a challenge at times, of course, but I think it'd be the same for any football club. To try and get sponsorship money into the club, it's usually people or kind of those closer links. So obviously that's what we've had to rely on to begin with. But we've had people who have run half marathons for us to raise money into the club. I know I ran a half marathon last year to put some money into the club as well. So it becomes a very far-reaching project in a way because people see it and believe that they can have an impact. I think with our volunteers, I think young people want to volunteer, but they don't really know they'd love to volunteer in football, they'd love to volunteer in helping people, but when they come and volunteer with us, we do see that they feel that they have a big impact on the actual project itself, as well as the young people involved.
Laura, I see you nodding your head there. I mean, is that something similar to what you've experienced?
Absolutely. One of the other issues that I know that the Hilltop have faced with Chris not being here is just basic kit, boots, socks, shin pads. They didn't even have that to start with. Nigel may be better placed to deal with some of this.
I was just going to say as well, we made a big effort to get them all the kit when they first arrived, and then of course they got the kit, they started playing, and then some of them started to be moved on, so the kit went with them, and then we ended up without any kit, and we had to go through the process again of getting more kit and raising more funds, and then the guys would be moved on again. So it was a bit of a never-ending cycle of having to find kit for people, and that is one of the big issues that Chris has grappled with. And it's such a shame that we can't get him into the meeting. I don't know actually what's going on, but I think Chris probably put a lot of money into this himself, just in order to get the kit for the guys to play, and then of course the guys come over here, they're getting used to a new country, they're getting used to a new way of playing. You tell them they've got to wear shin pads and they don't want to wear shin pads, so they're not happy about that. And then you tell them that they can't do sliding tackles and they want to do sliding tackles. And so whilst we've got football as the universal language, it also comes with its challenges as well. What I wanted to do just probably now, Alan, while we're trying to get Chris in, we have got one of the players from Hilltop United on the call tonight, a guy called Youcef, who has come to us from a background of being a player himself in Iran. Now, I'm hoping to do something with Youcef in terms of a coaching pathway. So we're looking at what we can do for him to be able to get into coaching. That's something for the Refugee Football Network to look at in terms of in communications with the FA and the county FAs. How do we get players, coaches, referees to come from this particular community? Now, one of the biggest issues that we had, obviously, with Youcef coming from a country where he didn't speak English was his language. And when I first met him, probably 3 years ago, he didn't really speak a word of English. His English has massively improved, but tonight he feels that it's not improved enough for him to be able to make a comment, and he's asked me to read out a statement from him to everyone. So this is from Youcef. This is about his journey as a refugee into the UK. So he basically says, my journey to the UK as a refugee asylum seeker has been full of challenges, but also opportunities. At first, it was difficult to adjust to a new country, language and culture, but I've learned to stay strong and focus on my goals. Football has been an important part of my life, helping me stay motivated and build a community here. Living in the UK has taught me resilience. I am grateful for the support I've received. In the future, I hope to use my experiences not only to grow as a player, but also to follow the coaching pathway so I can inspire and support others who are going through similar journeys. My dream is to develop as both a player and a coach and give back to the community that has given me so much hope. So I think that kind of probably tells the story of a lot of people. coming into the country through these various different routes from many different countries across the world, and what they're actually aiming for in terms of developing as individuals now that they've found themselves in a country that can offer them certain opportunities. I don't think we've not been able to get Chris in, so I think what I'll do is just give you a little bit of an overview of Hilltop United. So Hilltop started about 3 years ago now. It gets its name, Hilltop. The name comes from the hotel that the guys were first put into in Carlisle. So it was the Hilltop Hotel. It became Hilltop United, working very closely with the local charity Carlisle Refugee Action Group, CRAG. And the guys wanted to play football. CRAG put in a sports coordinator who is Chris. And to begin with, they literally cleared an area of scrub behind the hotel to create a football pitch. And it was probably the worst football pitch that you've ever seen, because it was totally unplayable. It was ridiculous, but they were determined to play there. We managed to get them some goals that went onto that pitch. And it was from early conversations then with me, as I'd only just started in my role as EDI director at Cumberland FA. It was like, right, what are we going to do? How can we get these guys playing football? So initial conversations were held with the county FA to get them registered. And of course, that brings along with it things like insurance, etc., and some money to buy various pieces of kit that they needed. We then opened up communications with the local council to talk about, well, where they're going to play. They need a pitch, they need a regular pitch. And we managed through a sort of spin-off of Carlisle, what was then Carlisle City Council, called Carlisle Matters. We managed to secure them a football pitch in one of the local parks. That's their pitch for the season. And it's renewed every season. They have changing rooms that go with that. And we started playing games. Now, the games were not without their challenges in the beginning. We felt that we couldn't publicize games ahead of time. So a lot of the games were organized by Chris to play against other local teams, mainly in the sort of inclusion arena. We felt we couldn't publicize them because there were some threats about, action if the team were to play. What actually happened was we started playing, and eventually we just reached that point where we didn't have any issues and started to then promote. What Cumberland FA then did was they had a number of other teams with different backgrounds, but probably all coming in under the EDI banner. So we had Carlisle City Deaf, and we had 2 or 3 teams that were born out of mental health issues, all playing together, playing friendly. So Cumberland FA decided, right, we're going to have an inclusion league. So these guys play in a competitive league now, 5 or 6 teams, and Hilltop won it. The very first season, they won it. It came down to a deciding game, one game, and they won that final game. And they've loved it ever since. They're not so keen on playing in the winter, so we've moved it to a summer league, which is going to make life a little bit easier for people. And the other positive thing that's come out of Hilltop's existence is that we've now created another team in the west of Cumbria called West Coast, and they played their first friendly competitive game against Hilltop just this Sunday. And that was brilliant because the game happened, and then afterwards, in conjunction with CRAG, we had food afterwards, and it was a great sort of community feel to it. So West Coast are going to join that inclusion league, so that's brilliant. The other great thing that's coming out of it is, we're identifying players who are really good, players who can play in teams at a higher level. And I was speaking to one just on Sunday who's really keen to progress and play at a higher level, and we probably will do something in conjunction with the county FA to see if we can find an appropriate team for him to play in, now that he's got his status, and that will really help. I mean, we talked about it before from a mental health perspective. For the guys from Hilltop, when they were living in the hotel, it was a case of, they're living in a hotel every day. They're not able to work. They're not able to go anywhere. They've got very little money. Football was the thing from a mental health perspective that kept them going. And I'm in the WhatsApp group for the team, and it's every day. It's like, when are we training? When are we playing? Where are we playing next? If they didn't have that football, I don't know what would have happened really. And I think we set up in the West Coast as well with a West Coast team that's helping in that particular location. I'd like to develop this further. I was having conversations at the weekend about doing the same thing, but with a women's team. Now the numbers for the women's team, it's harder to get them together because there aren't as many of them, but there seem to be more than there were probably a couple of years ago when I first started looking at that. So that's a great opportunity coming our way as well. And I think from the point of view of coaching, if we can get a number of people through their coaching badges, we have a number of people from all over the world in the community in Carlisle that might feel more comfortable being coached by people who can speak their own language. And we have some Muslim women who would like to play, and some of them would obviously like to play behind closed doors. So we've got to think about all these different things, all coming from the original refugees coming into the area. What does it mean? And we take it forward, and it's developed. It's been a slow burn in many ways, and I think part of the refugee network is to give organisations this sort of blueprint for how to set up a team. But believe me, Hilltop wasn't set up perfectly. It was good and bad, and we learned and we got knocks and had mistakes. But as a result of that, we now know kind of how to do it and who to go to and who to speak to in order to make it work.
Amazing story that Nigel. Thanks for sharing that. And I was looking at so Youcef, I saw you nodding a lot, and I just want to ask you: do you see is there many similarities of how Hilltop story is and Phoenix your story is?
I mean, yeah, it's a very, very similar story. The amount of enjoyment our participants get from football is you can't underestimate it. And I think I've had a word with a lot of them. I asked them directly their future plans. How does football make you feel? How does the team make you feel? Like these types of questions to just give us a bit of an understanding of where their head is at. And the feeling is that the answer for how football makes them feel is always freedom. How Oxford Phoenix makes them feel is always family. It's words around that. So touching on what Laura said earlier about that community element and creating kind of because I mean Laura and Nigel will both agree with me when I say it's more than a club. It becomes something much bigger. It becomes like a massive family, so then from there we've been impacting extra parts. This week we started a kind of an after school club for some of the younger players to help them with their English and maths, just so that they can get that extra support. But that only comes because we've managed to get more volunteers in. We'll also be starting a women's team this week. We have our first session. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities. And I think, as we discussed at the start of the call, a refugee football network would be amazing to just share these learnings, because I feel like many of us are all learning at the same time, but independently of each other. And potentially that support may help more of these football clubs kind of crop up. And yeah, as I mentioned, it can't be understated how powerful football is to young refugees.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's really well said.
Yeah.
Laura, do you want to come in with anything?
Just reiterating everything that's been said, the difference that it's made to the boys that we have here in Carlisle and out west is astounding, and it is the focus of the week. And the support that we've had from Nigel is amazing.
I think the other thing I was going to... Sorry, Alan. No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, like, both, all three of you, actually. So, I mean, undertaking this, what support have you had from county FAs or other organisations, and how helpful have they been, and how was there any times you felt there was a barrier or anything? Nigel, I'll let you go first.
I managed to get funding.
No, go on, Laura. Go on.
I was going to say we managed to get small amount of funding through Barclays Sported for the original kit for when they started playing matches, and we got some boots through Grass Boots for Crag, and I know that helped, but it wasn't enough.
No. I mean, I know certainly from Hilltop it's been a challenge. We did have some support, not so much through the club, but using the name of Carlisle United at the time, and we had some old kit that they were given from Carlisle United, which was really helpful. But obviously that can't happen every year. And I think now that the team and the players and the individual are a little bit more settled and they're not constantly moving on, that helps. We are getting new people arriving all the time though, aren't we, Laura, which brings its challenge every time, because it's unlikely that people who've had a kit are then going to give it back. They're going to want to keep it. So and again, that is an issue that we've had in the local area, is about, they get given kit. That's the kind of statement that we hear. Well, yes, they do, but there's a reason that they do. And the positive nature of what comes out of this has just been incredible for this team. If I think about the journey charted from where it was when it began to where we are now, and the fact that we were working in isolation, and it was only really 2 seasons ago when with Chris, we took the players to a refugee tournament in Middlesbrough. And there were 20 refugee teams, and it was absolutely fantastic. And that's where I spoke to a lot of people and realized there were multiple hilltops all over the place. And what could we do? Is there a way that we can tie this together and give each other support and be a support network for each other? So that, combined with what I'm doing with the FA now, that's what I'm hoping to get out of this. So when we've got a player, they do move on. When we've got a player who's moving from one place to another, we might be able to contact the people in that area and might make that transition a bit smoother and pass on some information, etc. So I'm really hoping that this will turn into something quite fantastic.
And Youcef, same question to you.
I think I'm cheating a little bit because I was employed at the Oxfordshire FA as a refugee and asylum seeker kind of inclusion officer, so kind of helped the team through that somewhat, but there wasn't much financial support at all on that side, unfortunately, and there still isn't that in place. So a lot of the funding, or a lot of the sponsorship that we've got, has kind of come from outside, whether it's going through the charity of Asylum Welcome and them managing to find funding pots, or myself reaching out to anybody and looking for some rich benefactors. I know Paul will be happy to hear that I'm a Newcastle United fan, so maybe I'll put a message into their owners as well to see if we can get some more funding. But
don't get him started, because once you get started, he's going to be talking about it all session. We've already had a late start.
We'll just move swiftly on then. But in terms of the kit, the reason I raised my hand is we had the same issue in terms of kit being given out and then it's not returned, because that kit becomes identity, and it's almost like if they hand back the kit, it's like I'm no longer part of the community anymore. So that becomes a really difficult decision. So the only answer for that is just to find sponsors to just keep funding new kit, unfortunately. But we've done a similar thing, because I did notice there was something in the chat about a boot bank. We also do the same, like with our Thursday 6-a-side football matches. I'll just take a big bag of boots, which are incredibly smelly at this moment in time, but then they can just wear them and then give them back. But it's a little bit more challenging with kit, because there is more of an identity with kit as opposed to boots and Astros.
Alan, I just noticed actually we've got Katie McHugh's on the call, and Katie is the manager of West Coast, the new team that's just set up. So I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Katie, but would you mind coming on and giving us a little bit of info about West Coast?
You're on mute, Katie.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, there's not that much information to give, really. We've only just started. We'd only had 4 training sessions before we were affiliated, and then booked in a match straight away with Hilltop. So we were sort of just jumped straight in at the deep end. So at the minute, we haven't got any funding. I've just begged, stealed and borrowed boots from everyone, kit from sort of local football teams. They've given me their old kit. Spent my own money on sort of shin pads and everything just to get us ready for a game. But yeah, now just looking for any funding that we can get, really.
I mean, based on what we did with Hilltop, we obviously had conversations with the council, and that's how we secured that pitch that you played on Sunday when I met you for the first time. So have you had any conversations with the council yet about?
No, we were for the first 2 training sessions. We were hiring a pitch, but they're quite expensive, aren't they? It was £40 an hour to hire the 4G pitch. But very luckily, the cricket pitch in the town centres let us just use their ground for free, which is amazing right now while the weather's still holding out. But we will have to look for something in the winter.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think if, in terms of this refugee network, this is exactly the sort of thing that I'm setting it up for, so that, we can bring people like yourselves on and point you in the right direction. So let's have a conversation with the council about a long-term lease on a pitch that you can play on throughout the year. That's obviously not going to be £40 a session. Going to be considerably cheaper than that, and I'm hoping people in teams who are setting them up just now can learn from that. We can bring people on who've been through the process, and they can then pass on their knowledge and help others set them up. And that's what I was talking about, that blueprint, really. So that's great. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but in the absence of Chris tonight, it was great that we had another coach from one of the local teams there. So thank you very much.
Yeah, but it's very easy to relate to what you were saying about the kit. Like I said, we've only really been going about 4 weeks, and we've already had 3 people leave with their kit. So we can see it's going to start to get very expensive if we're going to have to replace all the time.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
Actually, with the onboarding, I wanted to ask you, Youcef. So when you registered your players, what other challenges did you have in that respect?
I think the main challenge is getting the information from the boys, seeing as their English cannot be, isn't the best. There is obviously the issue of international clearance. That is the kind of the elephant in the room. We luckily haven't had that issue. Our county FA has been very supportive about covering that. But if I'm able to speak openly on the situation with international clearance, I think it's such a prohibitive and old-fashioned and archaic rule that really does create quite a lot of issues for refugees being signed to local football clubs. It seems to be that the idea is, oh well, maybe back in their home country they punished a referee, which seems like such a, it's always the kind of the trope that's bandied out whenever that question kind of comes up. Unfortunately, some of their home countries no longer have FAs. So, for example, in Eritrea, you can see their national side, who are in the same group as Morocco, which is where my parents are from. They haven't been able to play a single game in African qualifying or the African Cup of Nations qualifying. So it's not as simple as, international clearance will cover everything. For us, many of the boys are quite young as well, 16 to 18. So yeah, the chances of any kind of aggression towards referees is minimal at a younger age, whilst it's probably more likely at the older age groups. But that's that's just my 2 cents on international clearance.
Can you explain that a little bit more? So do you mean because they're being signed on to a county FA here, they need to be cleared from
their home country? Yeah, so they need to contact their home country or their home country's FA to have that, just to have that confirmation, basically, that nothing bad has happened in any of the leagues back in their home country. But like I said, luckily for us, the Oxfordshire FA have been very understanding and haven't dug their heels in about that. But this may be the case in other counties. I'm not sure.
Nigel, if you want to come in here.
Yeah, I just I don't want to get into too much on this particular call, but I think that's something that the Refugee Network can talk about. But it does seem ironic, doesn't it, that these people have left their home countries for a particular reason. They probably don't want to go back to those home countries for that particular reason, and yet we have to, in theory, go back and ask, has something bad happened in football in that country? What kind of answer do we think we're going to get to that? Is that potentially a means of holding these people back from that particular country? I think that's something that we need to look at the highest level, isn't it, Youcef? Because it's really prohibitive. Particularly for a refugee. You know, we're not talking about a Premier League player making £100 million move to the Premier League. We're talking about grassroots football, and very difficult and complicated circumstances around being a refugee and leaving that country in the first place. So it's something worthy of a lot of discussion, I think, at the FA.
And I'll just say one final thing on it as well. Sometimes the process can take a long time, as Paul's put in the chat, which leaves, you know, a young person potentially with no football, seeing his friends and his peers playing football whilst he's sat at home. So that will only impact their mental health further, or negatively. So yeah, it's just to me, it doesn't seem like there are many benefits, you know, quite simply.
Yeah. Someone has just pointed out to me that it's a FIFA rule, so that makes it very difficult for us to do anything about it. But we can't have the number of people coming to this country getting involved in football and being unable to play. It just seems absolutely crazy, doesn't it? So
that seems wild to me. Just for someone to play in grassroots football, they've had to go through those sort of jump through those sort of hoops, which is in many ways unnecessary, just to kick a ball around, really. But I guess that's just one of the challenges you have that you have to overcome. I mean, can you tell me some of the, you know, the positive successes you've had? So Youcef, you said that you're flying high in the league this season. How's that been, and how was the sort of reaction from other clubs? Has it been?
Yeah, so I think it's to be expected. I mean, I had a word with the team before the start of the season, and I had to be cynical, just as somebody who is of colour, who's played grassroots football. I know the challenges that come with that, and I know, I know that when you're losing, nobody cares that much, but when you're winning, sometimes you do get comments. So I've had to speak to the boys and say, look, we have to be calmer than any other team. We have to understand that people will try and get under our skin. So there are negatives for sure, and there will continue to be negatives this season. But it's the reason we do the things we do, and it's the reason that we exist. It's because we want to make a change, and we want people to be able to see that refugees are footballers first, as opposed to refugees first. You know, I think we put a big emphasis on food after the game because we believe that there are two ways of impacting kind of psyche, and it's sporting competition and then sitting down and having a meal with your opposition afterwards. And we'd like to think that, you know, people will realize that they have a lot more in common with the opposition that they've played against, in terms of us, than they don't. You know, I mean, what's more British than playing football on a Saturday afternoon? So that's what I'd say on that.
Brilliant. I think we're on two hands up, Alan. Do you think we should move on to take some questions from people?
Do you know what? Before we take on the questions, maybe we'll move on to the features, because every month I try to do talk about what's going on next month, the coming month, in the EDI calendar, and also I like to give a little bit of a history lesson, which is going to be topical today. So next month is Black History Month, and we will be having a Your Game Your Way event at Chelsea. Amari, can I bring you in? Can you tell us a little bit more about that if you can? Where's Amari now?
Yeah, I'm here. No worries. So we'll be holding a Your Game Your Way live event. So the plan is that we'll kind of do a online session as well to complement the live session that we're doing, and we'll just kind of go through how the event was. We'll involve some of the people that were involved in the event. And yeah, it's obviously the first time we've kind of done similar events in the past, but a Your Game Your Way live version is not something that we've done. So it's a really cool opportunity to kind of bring it to life, and then we'll kind of complement it with an online session as well. So yeah, really looking forward to it. We're gonna have some guest speakers there as well. So I don't want to give too much away, but we'll recap it obviously once it's done, and yeah, hopefully we'll get some really good feedback from it. So yeah, very much.
Do we have a date? Do we have
It's
a date
on
that we could share with them?
Yeah, it's so the session, the live session, the live event will be on the 16th of October, and then we'll obviously have our actual online session the last Wednesday on the 29th of October.
Cool. Thanks for that, Amari. I guess we'll be all getting an email very soon with details of how to sign up for the events.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
The other thing that is happening in the coming month, it's Diwali next month. So if there's any activations you want from your county or from your clubs, to have a think about that. And it's also Hate Crime Awareness Week, which will be happening next month. I know there are things happening around London to support this. So maybe if you want to check out on your local authorities to see if there's anything going on and how football is involved in that and helping with hate crime awareness. So that's this coming month. Let's do a bit of our history lesson. So today we were talking about asylum seekers and refugees, and I want to talk about one of the best players who've ever played football, who happened to become a refugee. I want to just give a few stats and a few information to see if you could guess who it is, and I'll do a big reveal at the end. So this player was born on the 1st of April 1927 in Budapest, Hungary. He started his career playing for Kispest and Budapest Honvéd. He was a top scorer in the Hungarian league 4 times, and in 1948 was top scorer in Europe. His accolades include scoring 84 goals in 85 internationals for Hungary, and also playing 4 times for Spain. He was Olympic champion in 1952 and led his country to the 1954 World Cup final. He won 3 European Cups, 10 national championships, 5 in Hungary and 5 in Spain, and he scored a whopping 802 goals over 792 official games during his career. He fled his country of birth in 1956 when the Hungarian Revolution happened and became a refugee, but settled in Spain playing for Real Madrid. I think I can see a few people put the answer in the chat, and the answer, yes, the player we are talking about was the legendary Ferenc Puskás. So yeah, I mean, I think that just shows that, given the chance, well, there's talent out there, and for whatever reason, whatever happened to them, or whatever happened, the circumstances in their country, and they had to leave, they are still, an amazing person, amazing player, and have done those legendary things. I think another thing we need to bear in mind too, that actually in this country, in England, we have had a history of refugees coming over and playing football and doing great things. So, I mean, at the beginning of the century, during the Spanish Civil War, there was a lot of Basque refugees from the Basque country. So Emilio Andicoa, Raimondo Perez Lezama, and Jose Gallego. So we have a history of people coming to this country and playing football and succeeding afterwards too. So yeah, big shout out to them. So that was my history lesson. What I want to do now is we've got a few people with hands up, and then we'll just go to the crowd, and then maybe Amari, if you want to bring in anyone from the chat, and so I think at first we will bring in. It says Colin, but I know that's not Colin in the picture.
That would be me. That's Kimio.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things. Because we're from leafy Cheshire, the government doesn't house refugees and asylum seekers in Cheshire because it's too expensive. So the refugees and asylum seekers we have are on their own, a family here, family there. And I tried to support a family where the oldest boy wanted to join in with football, but there was nobody else. It was really quite difficult. So anybody that's got any thoughts about that. But the thing is, I think we all need to do is, as I'm at Cheshire FA, is share our knowledge and information. Because if Oxfordshire have found a way around international clearance, then the rest of us need to know how they did it then. Because, if there's always, where there's a will, there's a way. And obviously, if you want somebody to play for, Manchester City, you need to do all the paperwork properly, because the FIFA and UEFA might notice. But if you want somebody to come and play for All Sager Town, they might not notice. So whatever information we've got on how people got around it, I think we should try and share that quietly, obviously, because we don't want to tell everybody what we're doing. But also any information on how you find a way of getting children who are on their own. There's no other asylum seekers or refugees in the area involved in football whose parents don't speak English and they don't have any money for travel or kit or anything else. I managed to get them free swimming lessons so they can swim now, but they couldn't find a way of getting them football. But
I think this is a good opportunity again for us to promote the program that Nigel has been working on as a COP ambassador with the refugee network. So maybe that's a place where we can discuss that afterwards. So Nigel, I think, would you like to come in there?
Yeah. I think it's one of the. I'm slowly building up a little agenda as we're going along here for that first meeting. It's growing, so I'll add that to the list. I think that's something that we can look at. So and that's kind of the point of it. So that's a scenario that I haven't heard of before. So therefore, you bring that to this network, and if we see anybody else in the country who's experienced it before and is able to help you, then that would be absolutely perfect. So yeah, let's put that on the agenda for the first meeting.
Youcef, would you like to come in there too?
Yeah, just to jump in on that point. What's really key is just being out and about in those particular communities. So, for example, in Oxford, we have quite a big East Timorese community, and just having links in there. Whilst many of them are not technically refugees, their parents may have been refugees, and just having that understanding of how to put a football team into the league. They all want to do it, but they don't have the understanding of how to do it. So just supporting people in that way, I think, is really, really important. And I mean, with Oxford Phoenix, the way we set it up is nobody pays. None of the players pay, whether you're displaced or whether you are somebody who was born here or you're a refugee or you're an asylum seeker. We'll find the sponsorship. We'll be able to provide football for all. So yeah, I think that's a key thing, is just being in those communities, understanding what those communities want, and then being able to then provide something for them.
Thank you for that. I want to bring in Corinne.
Hi.
I can.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I work with US care leavers, so from like 16 to 21, and we've just done football, had a fun day with them, because I agree with all of you, football is the common denominator for everybody. It's loved by everyone, and it's the thing. But with this FIFA thing with the name, I was under the understanding when people, I don't know about over 18, but if anyone's under 18, you don't always have to give their name and everything to register, because you could be putting them in risk. So I think there is ways around some of that things. I know there's different rules, because actually by them being sometimes signed up, people from other places could track them down. So I think there is ways around that.
I think that's something that we'll probably have to talk to county FAs on how they the safeguarding of that information. But no, it's a very good point there. Nigel, did you want to come in that, or Youcef?
I think I was just really going to say, I mean, even if they are registered with the FA, then that data should be protected anyway. So I don't know. You're right. We do need to speak to the county FAs in more detail about that. I can certainly do that with my own county FA.
I want to bring in Paul. Actually, Paul, are you still in here? Where's he gone?
Gearing up for the Newcastle game.
I'm back. I'm still delighted. I haven't got the smile on my face yet because Youcef's a mag. We'll be watching the match later on. We're having a watch party. Everybody's invited. Like from my perspective, guys, listening, which is what I've been. It's so humbling because every time we have these calls, it's usually for a different topic. But the one thing that remains the same, the one constant throughout, is like everybody's norms are different. So what you think's normal is absolutely not normal because everybody's norm is completely different. And these men, women, and children, they've had so many obstacles put in front of them just to literally be standing in front of you. And then to put another barrier of a kit, of a football boot, of a football, of a pitch, of a registration, of filling a form in, language barriers. There's so many obstacles. The fact that they continue to jump over every wall, knock down every door. I mean, that just shows the courage and the resilience of the people, firstly, and of the volunteers and everybody who's working with them. But also it just shows the power of the sport because it draws people to it, doesn't it? Football doesn't care where you're from or anything other than it just wants you to play. And I think that's so powerful. Everybody here could probably agree. And I can't remember if it was Youcef or Laura who say right at the start, every time they ask the participants, why are you doing this? And they're saying the same thing. I want to belong to something. And I want to feel part of something. Well, that's just like inherently humane. And I think that I'm getting to my question. Sorry, I'm just getting the long way. The question I was going to ask, given all of those obstacles, barriers that you are working against, the political and geopolitical environment that's happening outside, is that adding an extra layer of complexity, guys? I mean, that's both to Youcef and to Laura and anybody else on the call who's working in that world who wants to come in at that point. Youcef, can I go to you first?
Yeah, of course. This is the game, unfortunately, or fortunately. Like we understand that barriers have been in place for us not to achieve from the very beginning, and this is just another barrier for us. We have to protect the boys, but we do have open dialogues about what's happening. We do ask them how they feel about certain things, but we try and do it in a wise way where we're not really trying to bring too much attention to the negative side, but it's about trying to strengthen their resilience. We have buzzwords in the club. One of them is resilience, and we speak about resilience at every training session. And we say whenever we're losing in a match, we'll be shouting resilience at each other, and more likely than not, we end up coming back. So the boys have got resilience in abundance anyway, but it's just highlighting that and just kind of pinpointing that a little bit to remember our strengths as a team and our strengths as young people. So yeah, it's, you know, it's why we do what we do. You know, if it was easy, we wouldn't do it. I'm sure Laura and Nige would agree with me.
Laura?
Exactly what Youcef just said. There's not much to add, to be honest.
Nigel?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's absolutely 100% correct. And I think if I think about the journey of Hilltop from the beginning to where we are now, I think resilience, Youcef, is probably a word that describes it, because I think we've only got one player left now who was in the original group. It's changed a lot, but we've gone on this sort of journey, this curve, and we overcame the issues of potential protests at games and things, and we just said we're not going to stand for that. We're going to be resilient. We're going to get past it, and we are going to play. And we've done that, and we've achieved it. And then we're playing in the league, and then we're in cup finals. Now we've got West Coast. Now we've also got the potential of this network, which judging by the questions that I've seen in the chat tonight and some of the questions that we've had already, I think that's a perfect environment for those questions to be asked and then to be taken on to wherever they need to be taken to, whether it's the FA, the county FAs, whether it's even FIFA itself. But that's the perfect opportunity for us, I think. I was just going to go on now. Paul's gone off and answer a question that was raised, I think, by Nadia in terms of pathways for coaching. Again, that's something that as part of the refugee network that I would like to look at. So coaching pathways, player pathways, refereeing pathways as well, and how we can look at those, what we can do about it, how we can fund it. I've currently got 4 people in Cumberland FA remit who I want to take through the coaching badges, FA levels 1 and 2. One of them's on this call tonight, and it's looking at how we can achieve that and how we roll that out across the country and how we can achieve it for larger numbers. And I guess it's difficult. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but there are funding pots out there. We do need to speak to the FA as well. They are the awarding body for these qualifications. So I think it's just another pathway that we need to consider and consider how we fund that. So that's something that I think when we get the network up and running and we raise that conversation and we demonstrate the need, we have a body of evidence, then we can start, to talk to people about how we can do that en masse. But in the first instance, I really want to get these 4 through, because then they'd be a perfect sort of test case for this. So yeah, Alan, let's go back to other hands that might be up.
Actually, I want to bring Nadia in, because I think that was her question and she's got her hand up. So
Yeah,
maybe we'll bring her in, and then I'll go to Joe after that. So Nadia, you've got the space now.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you, Nigel. My question stems from the fact that it's quite common knowledge in sport that a lack of role models is a massive barrier to inclusion. So we don't want to make all this effort with these amazing players and they kind of waffle on and we don't really see them again. The intention to upskill them is so that they are for the next generation, because having that common face on the pitch is a massive reason why players actually play. So that's just something that we need to understand and try and apply. I know it's so difficult with funding, but it's a massive thing, Nigel. We've seen it as children ourselves. When we watch something on TV, we think, wow, we want to be like that. And also these success stories are what we need to hear about. So we want to hear about these amazing players that have made it through your refugee clubs, but then gone on to be coaches. And why are they not then going to be National League coaches? I don't want to see the barrier at county or regional level. I want to see this pushed up to national level, because only then can you break the barriers that you've spoken about, when people see that actually this is a positive change for the community as a whole. And it should be said that I know and understand how much work you all do, and it never goes unnoticed. Everyone is so appreciative of everything that you are doing, and sport is a big saviour for children and young adults, from mental health, from physical health. So kudos to all of you and well done. And I hope that we can carry on supporting you in the work that you're doing.
Yeah,
Thank you, Nadia. That was brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, Alan, just to say that since I started the theory of this particular network, I've had all sorts of grandiose ideas about where it might get to, and I go back to a meeting that we all held at Arsenal over a year ago, and we were talking about the cherry on top of the cake of what that might be. And Anwar Uddin, who isn't with us tonight, he's normally on these calls, EDI manager at the FA, is constantly telling me just temper it, because we might get there, but we've got a lot of stages to go through. But I think that's exactly what I'm thinking, Nadia, is we want to see the success stories. So we want to see someone come through from one of these teams and make it at the highest possible level. We want to see someone come through and be a coach at the highest possible level. And we want to see someone come through and be a referee. And that then sends that message to the rest of the community in this country. Well, they can do it as well. We can all do it, from no matter what background, what religion, what country you've come from, what your background is. There's someone like there that is a role model for you.
Yes, and don't forget, guys, barriers are there to be broken, so just keep breaking them.
We'll try.
All right, I want to bring in Joe. Let me just get you spotlighted. Yep, floor's all yours.
Hi guys, thanks very much for what you've shared so far tonight. I'm from Leicester City in the community, so we're the charitable arm of Leicester City Football Club. Every professional club in the pyramid will have a CCO, which is a club community organisation, working to represent that club in the local community, and many of them will have programmes working with refugees and people seeking asylum. Many will have access to funds and bursaries that can support that work as well. So just really kind of in the interest of joining dots, I suppose, of what I've heard sort of tonight and some of the stuff I've shared in the chat as well. You know, we've been able to access some funding where we could get codes for participants to get their FA Level 1 qualification. So they haven't got to pay. We would purchase the code that they can then access their coaching qualification. And just other things like the Playmaker course, that's obviously free for over 14s, but the language barrier can be an issue. So sometimes it's about the accessibility. Can you get a group together and do it with them? Maybe it's a practical thing where you take them through the course as a group. I guess, yeah, I just wanted to share that in the sense that all of you guys will have a local club that will have maybe access to some of that stuff, and where you can join in, and where they can join in the dots and make part of the conversation be really beneficial. I've mentioned before that we've got like a boot bank at one of our local parks where we have sessions at the 3G pitches where players borrow boots and sign them in and out. We've had bursary kind of options for kits as well. There's also lots of stuff around refereeing and coaching where there actually are bursaries for underrepresented groups to be able to get fast tracked onto refereeing and coaching courses. So just thought I'd share that, and happy to take any questions as well.
That's brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Joe. It's really useful information. I think that's the sort of thing that we can definitely take forward in this group, in the refugee network. I've heard just recently this week of another funding pot that I've been made aware of. So the more that we can unearth them, and the more we can bring people together, then the more we can utilize them. So that's really good to know. Thank you.
So Youcef, when they come in there.
Yeah, just to touch on that, we've had Oxford United in the community have supported our project for the last 4 years, but we've had to adapt our project somewhat, using them in a slightly different way, simply to keep costs down. It can be a challenge, obviously. You know, these organisations usually cost a little bit as well. At least that was our situation, as opposed to bring in money, and won't really. I mean, Oxford United and the community are quite small in that respect. They don't have a fundraiser or a fund writer. So yeah, so it's not always going to be the case. I understand. Probably, Leicester City will probably be slightly different, but just something for everyone to know as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because obviously every club and every area is very different and have different resources that will be able to help or be a barrier. But I think there are people out there, and there are a lot of connections that can be made with professional clubs in your area. Is there any other questions from the floor? If not, I guess we're 7 minutes early. What I'd like to do is probably go around the panelists, and Nigel, and maybe just if you've got any last words, or if there's anything you want to leave with the rest of this group before we go. So maybe I'll start with Laura, if that's okay.
Keep doing what you're doing. It makes a huge difference to the guys. The difference is absolutely astounding. I see how happy they are after a match. Talking about football, it is the thing that brings everyone together.
Brilliant, thank you. Youcef?
Echoing what Laura said. There'll be some difficult days. There'll be some brilliant days. It's important to remember about the bigger picture. One one thing that I said to the boys, I think, as kind of a post-match team talk, which just kind of popped in my head, was in 10 years' time, I want you guys to be proud that you were part of this team and that you were the first iteration of this team. When they have their own children, I want them to be proud of what they are. They're role models in the community now, our players. So it's about giving players that sense of ownership and that sense of community, but really giving them their dignity back, quite simply, you know, letting them know that they're important, which they are. They're incredibly important, you know. So that's one part. And then I've spoken about a few negatives, but I'd like to leave it with a positive as well. And I'd like to speak about one of our players, Stephen, who joined 4 years ago. He was very shy, could barely hold eye contact. He's now a semi-professional footballer. He won the Intermediate Cup in Oxfordshire, which is quite a high-level cup, full of semi-pro teams as well as a few amateur teams. So yeah, really, really happy to see the kind of the impact. And then he was interviewed and he thanked his team, and he also thanked our coaches as well, and myself, which was very kind of him. But it's important to kind of remember, you know, sometimes you don't get a thank you every day, but in the end, you know that you've done a good job. So I think that's kind of how I'd like to leave it. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Nigel.
Yeah, well, listen, I think Laura and Youcef have pretty much covered everything in their final statements there. It is about looking to the future. It is about the positives. It is about creating legacies. And I think just the conversation that we've had tonight, the questions that have come through, there's still a lot that we need to do. And I think if we can sort of pull together in a sort of coordinated group and help each other achieve those goals for the guys themselves, for as many women's teams as we can get going, for the families of these the players, and look at pathways for them. So not just for playing, you know, for some people playing on a Sunday morning, that's going to be fine, but there's an opportunity for people to make careers out of this, whether it be refereeing, coaching, or playing, and to give them their self-respect and an ability to feel a belonging in the communities in which they live. So I think that's pretty much my final statement on that, is let's just let everyone belong. Thanks very much for your attendance, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I mean, it's been really interesting learning more about refugee and asylum seekers in football. And I mean, for me, it's something that's totally new to what I do in my day-to-day as a COP ambassador, to be honest. And just hearing all these stories and hearing the impact that you're having. And I mean, yeah, football is always going to be a thing that brings people together, but for people from the asylum seekers and refugees, it seems to be something that's even more doubly special, because, you know, this is all we've got sometimes, right? So no, it's been amazing hearing all these stories. And yeah, thank you all for coming on. Okay, so I think that's a wrap for us tonight. If there's nothing else, no one else want to pop in. I mean, Amari, Paul, is
I think
anything else?
Paul wanted to jump back in.
Oh, okay. You get you back in, Paul.
Yeah, guys, you can probably tell it's not going to be very long because the Newcastle match is about to kick off, and I know Youcef is dying to get off the call so we can watch it. First and foremost, guys, I just would like to thank everybody for the attendance. You could be doing lots of other things on a Wednesday night, but you have chose to participate in this. Thanks very much to our guests, Amari. Thank you very much, and to our fantastic hosts, Nigel and Alan. And my closing thoughts are this: when Youcef said football and food is key to humanity, because when you sit down with somebody and you break bread, it's amazing how many things you've got in common. And everything that's going on in the world at the moment, this could have easily have been quite a negative call. I'm so pleased. I'm actually buoyant and I'm going away like very positive and hopeful that there's so many good things happening out there, and there's so many good people doing those good things. So well done to everybody. Can't wait to see what you do next, and a big shout out to Nigel for setting up the network, because bringing everybody together is only going to amplify what you're doing and making it easier for everybody. So well done, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Youcef, you enjoy the Newcastle match. You know we're going to smash Bradford. Good night, everybody. Cheers.
So anyway.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.